2016, launched the business, 29 at the time, and then we sold that business for about 24 million. Started as a real estate agent, realised why the hell are we giving all this data away and giving it to all these 4 data houses. There was a bigger opportunity, which was to digitise it end-to-end for sales process, authorities and contracts.
Angus Ferguson. He started as a real estate agent, built a company that processed 1 in 5 property transactions in Australia, sold it for $24 million at 29, then chose to learn how to run a $300 million business before going again. Now he's building Foundit, and this time he's coming for the other side of the deal.
CEO of Domain called me and said, hey, would you like to invest? I was young and dumb enough to say no, but you can buy the business. I had to borrow $500,000 to keep negotiating against them, getting the deal done.
Sounds like a mafia offer.
5 years ago, if we wanted to invest in a technology business, we would look at, well, what's your moat?
Yeah.
And the moat was the tech and it was the data. But now actually number one priority is brand and community. How strong of a following, both internally and externally, do you have to actually succeed?
Angus Ferguson, welcome to Flow Zone.
Thanks for having me, Mark.
Mate, this is like a full circle moment. It was a decade ago that you were in my new office building in Newcastle.
I remember it. I was thinking about it on the way here. It was, 10 years ago, 2016, you sent us a message. We were having a conversation with PyLab and you said, I'd love to hear more about what you're doing. And we drove up to Newcastle and got you to test some stuff.
So that was when you were bid tracker becoming real-time agent.
Yep.
And I was building something like pretty much on my own and you were already ahead of the journey. And I'm like, look, I can tap into this. And I remember you having a little bit of trouble getting into New South Wales because the contracts were different. And
it was the business was, the great thing about it is we took it from 0 to 20% of all transactions doing digital and getting rid of all the paperwork. The hardest thing though is where the value sat wasn't in the digital signature. It was in automation of process, as you well know. We were having a conversation with you at the time. But the problem is every state has different legislation. And so what that means is you got to rebuild the product every state you go into.
And the approach, like, man, some people didn't want it to change. Hey, I imagine Queensland would have been like a different spiel for you there. Lighter on the documentation, but pretty happy with it.
Definitely. I remember an agent who I was having a conversation with and they run a very, very successful business, but they said to me, Gus, this 200-page document, people want to trust it and feel it before they sign the paperwork. And I went and seen him the other day and I'm like, remember when you had that convo? And now 20% of all transactions, he's like, I know, I was wrong. But I think what elevated it, made it go so much quicker was COVID. Because the reality was if you wanted to keep doing business, you had to do it online. You couldn't do it in person anymore. And so we tried everything. We tried online auctions, a bunch of other stuff around online inspections. A lot of that actually, as soon as it went back, a lot of people went back to in-person auctions, but digital signing remained.
Now, today we're going to be talking about we're going to touch on your story of bid tracker, real-time agent, selling to a public company, Domain, and what that looked like. But we're really going to be getting into the problems you're solving now as a second-time scaling founder, going at it again, going back into the flames. It might be more than second time, but second big one. And I think every business owner is going to benefit from this, not just people in real estate, because whilst that is the product line we're both talking about here, the property industry, everyone's a buyer or a tenant at some point, right? So that's part of it, but also just the problems you're solving and how you're looking at it through a lens that I love, which is more consumer, sort of customer lens rather than just the people who are paying to be on the platform. So maybe just give us a high level of bid tracker, real-time agent, sale of Domain, and then we'll figure out where the convo goes from there.
Yeah, I'll rip through the RTA story because it's been told a few times, but effectively started my career as a real estate agent, quickly realised why the hell are we giving all this data away and giving it to all these 4 data houses being REA, Domain, CoreLogic and property data. Basically went about building first product bid tracker, digitising the auction process, quickly realised that there was a bigger opportunity, which was to digitise it end-to-end for sales process, which was digital signing for 2 main things, authorities and contracts. Why those 2? The 2 biggest catalysts for when you start workflow and when you finish it. How do we get that at the point of sale to help everyone back of house to do their job faster and more efficiently? And then from there, we went in 2016, launched the business. Within 3 years, got it to 10% of all transactions in Australia going through it. 29 at the time, CEO of Domain called me and said, hey, would you like to invest? I was young and dumb enough to say no, but you can buy the business. And then they ended up through a long negotiation that they said would take a few weeks. We got sucked in. It was about 6 months.
Yeah.
Fun fact, which I haven't said before, is we ended up having to borrow money off them. We had to borrow $500,000 to keep negotiating against them whilst we were still getting the deal done.
Sounds like a mafia offer.
Which was an interesting
it's
one.
Too good to refuse.
Yeah, and then they did, and they did it with grace. Credit to Jason Pellegrino. And then we sold that business for about $24 million. We then exited, had a 2-year earnout. Got to the end of the earnout. CEO sat me down. He said, look, you're young. You probably go again, but why don't you stay a few more years? I'll teach you how to run a much larger organization and in return, be an annoying entrepreneur inside of a large business. And so what we did is I continued to say the unsaid thing in a lot of cases with inside of a corporate environment.
Yes.
In return, he taught me how to run a team of over 100 people, a P&L of about 300 million, which was a very, very different journey, as you well know, Mark, from when you're running a team of 10 to when you're running a team of 50 to 100, when you've got a P&L of $1 million to a P&L of 300 million, your behaviors are completely different.
Oh, totally.
And often people who can do it up and solve a problem at an entrepreneurial side of, be deep in fixated on solving one particular problem, great entrepreneurs can get it to a certain point. The problem is that they can't scale with the business, and often the founder has to tap out in order for that business to continue to grow. And for me, I just seen it as a huge opportunity to learn on someone else's time and dime in order for me to be able to understand what that next chapter would look like as well.
That's a great rundown. The unsaid things inside a corporate environment, I'm busting to know what some of those were.
I think you've got to be careful with how I say it, but there's a lot of people inside of a large business, it's a great way to earn a really good income and have a huge purpose. The problem a lot of people become is you end up becoming beholden to the wage in a lot of cases. And so sometimes it can hold back a bit of innovation because you don't want to be the person that's kind of going against the groove and saying the unsaid thing because it might not sit you well from a marketing perspective on an individual level within that business. You might be seen as a bit of a detractor.
Yeah.
And so sometimes innovation kind of suffers because people become scared that they don't want to say the thing that might be out of the groove in a lot of cases. Whereas for me, I was like, I'm just happy to be here. I feel like I'm very fortunate to have the opportunity to be working and be given the opportunity. But at the same time, I knew eventually I'd want to go back out and have a crack again. But I was smart enough and dumb enough to know that I don't have all the answers and I'm only good at a few things. And so the ability to learn from some really great people around me and understand how you actually build that muscle from a leadership perspective and a discipline of what you got to spend your time and your day on. And so I'll give you an example of that, which was when I first got in the chair after transitioning from real-time agent into domain. I was like running around, behaving like an entrepreneur, being in every meeting, making every decision, which is, as you know, and I've heard you talk about this before, it's like high energy, lead from the front, show everyone what the standard is, etc. And I just kept burning out. And I went back to the CEO and I was like, I don't know if this is for me. Like, I just keep burning out. He's like almost laughing at me. He's like, I knew this was going to happen to you.
A million unfinished jobs.
Yeah, all of that stuff. And I ended up getting a business coach, and the business coach sat me down and we went through a lot of different stuff, and we came up with a bit of a tagline, which was, I'll only be where I can have an impact. So if I can't have an impact inside of that meeting, leave it with the team and build great capability around you from a leadership perspective when it makes sense. Like, you've got to decide in that feeling, as you know, of you starting to see momentum come through. You need to be thinking about, have I got the right capability sitting around the room where it's not completely dependent on me for the next evolution of the business?
Yeah, fair point. But do they subscribe to like scaling up or EOS or John Doerr's Measure What Matters kind of OKRs? Like, is there a framework inside an organization like that? Because they often help you determine where the big thing is you're going for that's most impactful and what constraint lies in front of it so you can build muscles in there?
Yeah, we ran an OKR, which is, that was run by an ex-Google guy. CRO was ex-Google.
Objectives and key results for anyone listening.
Yep. It was an interesting one. Like, it's jarring. Like, I remember Frank Grief and I, who you've had on the potty as well, like, our style and entrepreneurial is like, come in, find the biggest opportunity, run at it 1,000 miles an hour versus sit down, make a plan, have the discipline that sits in behind it and get scored against it. But I actually realized, and this time around the business, which we'll come to in a second, we've got OKRs out of the gate. They look a bit different, but the intention is the same of like focus your energy on a few things as opposed to trying to do 20 things all at once.
Yeah, well, Jim Collins said it really well. If you've got more than 3 priorities, you haven't got any.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like some task list that no one knows the start and the end of.
So to come to the last part of your question, like then transitioning and, I started to get a bit of a feel for, okay, I've built a bit of the muscle here. I understand the discipline that has to go in behind when you're running a business of that size. And I was like, I've got the itch. I want to go again. And a part of that itch was the why was I was young when I sold the first business. I thought I had a lot to give. I still think I do have a lot to give. And I just was like, I think I owe it to myself to have another go at something. Just innately, I was like, let's go and see if I can really put all these skills and all the energy and everything that I've still got, and go and have a crack at a much bigger scale again. So the scary part this time around is it is a consumer-facing business. Last time it was in the shadows, B2B, handling 20% of deals in Australia, but no one really knows it was our business sitting in behind it as well.
Yeah, and especially once it became one of the domain product stacks. It was kind of like even people that were with Domain and started using their stuff, it's just like, oh, yeah, that's one of our things now. It's not like there's a founder out in front of it going, look what I'm building and solving this problem and the like. Just before we do get on to Foundit and what you're doing now, because I think that's fascinating, there would have been some moments when you're in that environment, and this is no discrediting to Domain or any corporate environment for that, but there's a lot of our listeners that are entrepreneurial thinkers, but they're in, more corporate or business environments, or maybe they're going from that sort of, what we call SME in Australia, whether it's a 50 or 150 mil turnover, and they're about to jump up to the next gap. They might have an IPO underway or something like that. Peter Thiel, I think, talked about it in 0 to 1, and he talked about how the middle manager's job and how so many middle managers have this mindset of maintaining the status quo because, like, it's safe, like you alluded to in your first point. And it can actually become an obsession of the individual, and they're starting to think about, well, if this company's heading a certain way, or things don't look right on the share market at the moment for this company, and it's like, how do I preserve my kind of resume and the impact I've made and what's next to my name on the way through? Now, I don't even say that in a way that people are intentionally being that way. It's kind of product of environment thing.
Totally.
But then for someone who is brought in and charged with the responsibility to think like an entrepreneur and lead change, how did you get people like that? They would have been in there. How did you get them to come on the bus with you or make the really hard decisions about, well, this person's just clearly not aligned to progress. They seem to be preserving themselves.
Yeah, it's a really good question. It's interesting, the way we talk about it is like an open mindset or closed mindset. And a lot of people, and like everyone's guilty of it. It's not like a particular organization, whatever it might be. It's like you become just used to habit and used to the way that you do things. And so when change comes along, your first reaction is always, this is bad. It doesn't matter who you are. It's like your initial reaction to stuff, and you've got to kind of shock yourself out of it.
Fight, flight, or freeze.
I'm guilty of it as well at times. And then I'm like, hang on, I'm trying to say I'm open to change. I'm always pushing, etc. But I'm actually in this mindset. I'm in the mud at the moment. I've got to get out and get into it. Is that what we did is when we stepped into merged the RTA business in, it became a part of about 8 different suites of products, about a team of about 140 people. And so we came up with what the strategy was. We came up with what the values were, and we started running at it. And, we did all the things that we thought we were right, which was show a huge vision, show the thing that everyone's got to be running at, get people excited, and then you start going. And then all of a sudden you kind of dart 10 miles down the road and you're the only person standing there.
You're asking them whether you go right or left, and there's not even anyone there to tell.
Yeah, exactly. And so we ended up bringing a consultant who helped us with change management. And a lot of what it actually came back to was, in order to get those people on the journey, we actually had to make sure they were part of the strategy and a part of the values that we were creating inside of the business. You can't just say, this is it from a top-down perspective, now go and absorb it. You've got to make sure that middle management in your example is on the boat and on the train heading towards the destination, because they got to be a part of building it. If they don't feel a sense of ownership around it, you're not going to get them there. The reality is, though, with some of it is there is a quote that's, if you can't change the people, change the people.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's the harsh reality, is that people have hit that extending the ledge, as John Fung would say it often to us. There's no more ledge to give them. And it's time for them. It's not a personal thing. We just need to find a person that we can put in for that capability of what you need in that sense of the journey as well.
It is challenging. I think, so the values is a great measure. It's like a compass. You know, like whilst you might have a North Star you're going towards, you've sort of got to be in alignment. You've got to be rowing in the same direction. And I think values, what a lot of people don't realize is that you can replace the word of values with standards.
Yep.
And you can actually measure the behaviors if you're clear enough in defining them and not just leaving them as marketing terms.
Yep.
And so that was one big thing that when in our group, after I'd sort of grown a collection of franchise offices with an operating system and then did buyers advocacy as a separate brand due to the nature of our structure at the time. When we became our own brand, the first thing was just like basically changing the colors and just continuing to do business as similar as possible because we were the leading brand for a long time.
Yeah.
And we just wanted people to know they would get at least as good a service and we'd be improving things in a needs basis. But then as we became clearer and we got involved in scaling up and we had proper advisory board around us, and then I was actually putting a proper management team in place so I could do the proper scaling founder thing, we had to make the values measurable, and it's freaking hard to do because you've got people that you actually like as a human that have been very productive.
Yeah.
But when they were immeasurable, it was totally fine for them to be all running their own race in one way or another because there was no one or no thing that would actually say that it was right or wrong.
Yeah.
But when you're consistently communicating what great looks like for example, this one here is one of our values, better together. And basically that we believe 1 + 1 = 5, that there is an internal way inside our business of creating a better client outcome, better customer outcome, better team member outcome, therefore better business outcome by collaborating with someone else, even if it's just a red team check, like a go, no go they do in the Air Force before they take off. And if you've got a measurement of that, what that looks like is in what percentage of deals are actually involving someone else and whether you have participated in the daily huddles with the go, no go, red team check meetings, or whether you are avoiding those and then, other things are starting to crumble, then that's actually an actionable thing you can do. How did you do that inside a listed entity? And given that you're a business inside a business, basically, were they different values than head office's values, or is it the same set?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, and one that we spent a bit of time up front in the acquisition with Jason, which he's done a lot. When they're DDing the business, they're not just DDing the business of what customers, what revenue, et cetera. They're DDing management, they're DDing the founders. And what they're trying to figure out is, do we have cultural alignment? Do we see the world in some degree the same as each other? Do we have the same desire of what the objective is that we're trying to do? For example, help the customer become a better industry, et cetera, et cetera. If you don't have that, it's really hard. And I've seen it with different other businesses and been a part of other acquisitions and stuff. And when it's not, and people got the blinkers on just to buy the opportunity and buy the customer base, things go pear-shaped pretty quickly. It's like before you can even decide on what the objectives are, other people are aligned firstly before you even bother setting the targets on it. And the reality is that, as you said before, like some of those people, you get them into a traffic light system, into a systems and a process, and they're like, this is not for me. I loved when it was 0 to 5 years and it was just pure hustle and energy. And you needed those people. Those people were critical to building the business from 0 to 5 years, but they might not be from 5 to 10 years. And it might not be for them. It's not enjoyable either. So for us, it was firstly, I had to change because I had to make sure that if I'm going to ask a person to run inside of a process that we didn't have yesterday, well, I've got to be actually doing it too. And I've got to show up to show them I'm going to be following the process. My belief is if you got to put something in place, such as a process or a system, and you don't follow it yourself, it's poor leadership. And I've seen it so many times inside of good businesses, real estate businesses I've spent a lot of time in. If we go and put a piece of software in, firstly, it's heavy on change management. Change management's the hardest piece. If you can't get past that, you're not going to get anywhere. And generally, the best businesses that had change management and did it successfully was the leader did it first. And they showed them the way in order to show the proof and the data point sitting behind it.
I resonate with that wholeheartedly. And, I've had exposure inside listed entities, more as an advisor and investor, but in ones that are getting ready for that, through private equity and venture capital advisory and investing I'm involved in. And like it's really hard when you've got nondescript values in one, you've got discrete values in other, you've got people who are part of you said like that first 0 to 5 year journey. But in the end, you are freeing up their future if they don't want to be part of that vessel, you know? And I think that the people that are really good at doing that, they disappoint with kindness.
Yeah.
Friska Wiria that I had on, she's a international change expert, one of the global leaders in it. And she's been on Flow Zone. So it'd be worth anyone watching that episode if they're going through this kind of thing at the moment. But she just speaks about the level of communication required. Like we say something and we think that they've got it because we did a bang up presentation. We've spent 100 hours on it and we are living the change ourselves.
Yeah.
I'm doing that at the same presence at the moment. I'm actually jumping on doing discovery calls because like I believe the framework that we've got unearths things. And now that it's so normal to record calls and get consent to do so, I can actually hand it over. They can hear the tonality. They can hear the response. They're like, wow, like that just went ahead. That multi-million-dollar deal or that client onboarding with 5 properties, that client that had never used that service before now opting in at full fee and double the competitor's charge because of the value that's being created. They're doing that and you're not even showing them a presentation.
Yeah.
And it's like, no, you're tuning into what's important to them because you've been willing to be part of that change.
We had a great example of that. So Sarah of the area who came and joined us, it was a friend of mine. And I needed help with a particular part of the business, which was a heavy operations role. I said to her, I need you for 2 days a week. She was actually a professional photographer. And I was like, can you please come and help me? I really need someone to help me with this thing 2 days a week.
They've got to be good at ops.
And yeah, it was like completely unaligned, but she was a really good person. And I knew I could trust her and she'd do a good job. Fast forward a month later, she's like, I actually really like this. Do you think I could do it full time? And I'm like, well, yes, there's full-time work there. Fast forward to when we put system, structure, process, people inside of it. She ended up running a team of about 70 people.
Wow.
And she just continued to be able to evolve, and every step change, she'd embrace it and she'd evolve with it because she kept the open mindset of, I know that this is going to benefit me and it's going to benefit her team. So she can continue to evolve and everything. So fast forward, she was with us for 5 years. It was supposed to be 3 months. And then she ended up getting her master's in videography and has now moved to London.
Yeah.
But her and I were laughing the other day of like, it was an awesome partnership. And she learned a lot about herself. I was really proud of her. And from a leadership perspective, that's the kind of stuff that's really exciting when you see someone flourish, go from a part-time role to running a team of 70 people. And with managers of managers is you unlock potential in people, which is really exciting.
It also shows that it doesn't really matter what industry you've come from. There's going to be a common trait there in certain roles or openings. Like, I'd often not hidden, but tried to segment that, I'd had a creative side of my life where I'd been, playing music and writing songs since I was like in my single digit years. Like I played my first instrument at like 7 or 8.
Yeah.
I wrote my first songs at that time, like end up a drummer, da-da-da-da. But then I ended up really gifted at, well, not gifted, I suppose I dove into the more engineering, the sciences, and that's why I ended up in trades and engineering. I wanted to get out and earn, but I was passionate about being involved in a business. And I used to keep these separate parts. Now I realize that our world right now needs great operating systems more than anything. And I've got a real estate business. I'm creative, so I can bring the left lane and the right lane together.
Yeah.
But had I have said, I've come from this engineering trades industry in the Hunter Valley coal mines, and I've been in hip hop groups, I've got tattoos and I wear different clothes, and I have been an elite prestige agent doing $100+ million developments and opening offices.
Yeah.
It'd be very hard to say that, well, he's suited to this role.
Yep.
But now I think I'm the most suited to what I'm doing right now. Yeah. And it's a lot, that's the same sort of story that we've just spoken about.
And my background was I grew up in a small country town in Echuca. Went and played soccer overseas for a couple of years, realized I wasn't going to be good enough, but learnt how far hard work can get you. And that was what I figured out was my superpower. And then I never got a university degree or anything like that. I think I was probably the only one in the leadership team at Domain that didn't have one, but it brought fresh perspective and a different way of doing stuff.
It's like priority-led learning, because I didn't even finish year 12. I had super high grades, but I just used them to go and get the best jobs.
Yeah.
But then when I needed to learn other things, like I went and did all my mechanical, electrical engineering diplomas, and then in business, like, man, I feel like I've done a couple of Harvard degrees in real life lessons and also paying for consultancy. Like it's in the millions how much I've invested. I wouldn't have done that in hex fees or whatever it's called for uni.
Yeah. I always joke around that, like, I've often learnt the hardest way possible through failure.
Yeah.
But you quickly learn and you fail fast and you figure out a way to not steer into the same mistake again, hopefully.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Well, talking about the same mistake or huge opportunity again, let's get into Foundit.
Yep.
Because and I'll lay the scene here that we have both been passionate about the customer journey in real estate. Now, I describe the customer journey. This applies to everyone. Everyone's a tenant or a buyer at some point. And in Australia, up until recently, they have been not even called a customer, but I call them a customer. They're just a non-paying customer. Mm-hmm. Same as on domainandrealestate.com, the buyer or the tenant going on there, they're not paying domainandrealestate.com to be on there at this stage, right? The person paying is what they call a client, who's a real estate principals and businesses. And in Australia, it's been owner-side real estate primarily for a long time. You know, I started researching it at 08, 09, right when I was bringing out friendly auctions, and I could just see how buyers were being treated, in particular buyers, because I was working more in sales then. Tenants is a massive can of worms to get into. Mm-hmm. But the journey had so much friction in it. You've solved a lot of that with your documentation processes for client side and agent side. And when I went back, I went to the States in 2011. I went to NAR, National Association of Realtors. Yep. I saw what was going over there. 90+% buyers agency initiated transactions, or realtors as they call them, and brokers for principals. 400 or 500 agents working out of one office. There was ironing ladies and taxi drivers selling properties, one or two a year. Yeah. The standard was low, but everyone had a realtor. You know, you wouldn't buy a property without a realtor. And I went back in 2012 and 2013 and spoke on friendly auctions, and just to understand this more, I said, I'm definitely going to get involved in buyer side. I later ended up involved in Henderson Advocacy. I was with a franchise group at the time, so we needed to go a separate label. I got permission off them, but it was never that favourite of their in their world. And Jack, my co-founder, very extroverted guy, out in front. I said, let's put him in front. Great on media, super high energy. I'll be the operating system guy. Got all the legal advice under the sun on how to structure it. Yeah, that ended up falling in our face, which I later learned lessons on. But I'm still passionate about this journey. And now in Presence, we're integrating it now completely properly, like other models in Australia where you only ever act for one side. But most agencies, like real estate agencies, like if they've got, say, 100 properties that they sell in a year, they could be dealing with up to, tens of thousands of buying inquiries. But how many they're actually communicating with and helping on the journey when they work for the owner side is very limited. Yep. And there's been no good handoff to buyers advocates. People didn't even know about it. No. This seems like where you're heading. Tell us about Foundit. And how you're enabling that through technology, through AI, and just through, bringing more awareness to what is rapidly changing in that world.
So when I got to the end of, for context, before I get to the problem we're solving, got to the end of the journey of Domain, was starting to think about and get pretty fired up to have a go at something. And I looked at all kinds of stuff. I was looking at like a lawn mowing business, all kinds of, went full spectrum, and then came back to real estate. And one of the things is, in my previous role, I was very fortunate to fly around the country and speak to lots of agents. And the consistent feedback was, gee, there's a lot of buyers agents popping up everywhere all over Australia. And it was starting to happen more and more in conversation. I was like, this is interesting. Why? And the premise of what I always try and do is what we learned from the last business, with my business partner in this one, we broke it down. We distilled it under 3 things you've got to have. 1, you got to solve a real problem for whatever customer segment you're going into. 2, you got to have strong unit economics on a standalone basis. What I mean by that is you can't be reliant on having to raise capital every 5 minutes in order to stay in business. Yeah. A lot of companies will try and do it because they're like getting access to this proprietary data, etc. You've got to have good fundamentals. And the 3rd is you've got to have a business that is technology enabled or tech first approach. Yeah. And so what was the problem that we're trying to solve for Foundit and that we're on the journey of now is that buyers fundamentally have the hardest odds of actually buying a property. I'll tell you what they are. 70% of people get a pre-approval for a mortgage in this country, don't buy. Now it takes an Aussie 8 months to buy a home in Australia. And one of the banks did a property literacy quiz with people who were successful. So they're in the 30%. there was questions in there like, between when you sign the contract and when you settle, what must you do? A, get insurance on the property. Most people didn't know. And you're like, well, that's pretty interesting and alarming for you and I as property people. But then you step back a second and you're like, well, the consumer's only going to do it once or twice in their life if they're lucky. Why would they know?
Yeah.
And so we started to look at it. I'm like, okay, there's definitely a problem to solve here. And the simplest way to think about it is you bought a house 25 years ago. The mortgage on average you could repay in 6.5 years, and it was probably a $70,000 transaction. So you bought on 2 fireman inspections and you bought on a handful of comparable sales that were supplied by the sell-side agent. Then fast forward today, that same asset is worth millions of dollars. The mortgage commitment is 30 years, not 6.5. And you still buy on 2 fireman inspections and you still buy on a handful of comparable sales. And the pitch we gave to one of our investment bankers who we've raised money from was like, oh no. I'm like, what's wrong? He's like, I've just realized I bought a $7 million house a few months ago. And I did more DD on the fridge than I did the house.
That is so true.
Yeah. And it's just like a thing that we've socially just accepted that that's okay. It's not. Like if you think about it this way, you go to buy stocks, you put a $500,000 block out there, a $100,000 block. You don't do it on your own.
No.
You call your investment banker, you call your wealth advisor, you call your accountant. But we've just accepted that that's the way you do property.
Well, even if it's just not info, like think about the execution, right? Because like info has become a lot more readily available now. We can get info at a click of the fingers with any of the LLMs and even the things that sit on top of LLMs in AI. But it's not just info.
No.
Well, it's not just the way the info is assembled, it's the execution. And if you think about, you can research the hell out of the court of law and would you go into battle against like an esteemed barrister
exactly
on the other side as plaintiff or defendant of a call it civil case, forget criminal for the moment, would you really go up against an esteemed barrister? Like what would your chances be? People don't think twice about spending thousands of dollars, sometimes per hour, on these guys with their troves of legal teams charging in the hundreds of hours under it. Yeah, when it goes to buy a property, they're out there drudging around on a weekend, looking at properties, taking people's word for it, asking other people's opinions that are too busy to give one and uninformed anyway, and then pulling the trigger on something that is literally a life-changing purchase.
Yeah. And so what we did is the problem became very clear. You look under the hood at what's the macroeconomics that's going on in this space is that buyer's agency's been around for a very, very long time, as we were talking about before. It kind of hovered at like 1% of residential transactions that were assisted with a buyer's agent up until a few years ago, and then it went to 3%. And in the last 2 years, it's gone to 8%. We think it probably gets about 20 to 25% of all Aussies will use a buyer's agent in some fashion. So they might not use full service where they're paying 20 to 50,000. They might use it for negotiation-only services. They might use it for research, and they'll productize some of the services within it. But we think about 1 in 5 probably gets to it.
Well, that correlates perfectly with like I've still got the premise docs from before I co-founded Henderson. And at the time I went to the States, in Australia, it was half to 1%, like for the second trip in 2013. When we started Henderson, it was about 1%, like when the business actually became a business in 2020. I was just advising prior to that, and I had an arm's length set up for a while. When it was only in the last couple of years, it was the last year or so, we saw about 5. It looks like 5 to 8 now. But I said the same thing. Within our time, within this next decade, I could see it being at least 20, 25%. And if we break out the services, like where there's coaching and there's, other models involved, like I think it could end up substantially more because it already has elsewhere. It makes perfect sense. And what will just change is the value proposition and how you carve that service up into pieces.
Yeah. So we always look to what's happening in overseas market. Generally, to your point, a good indication of what's going to happen here. We're an island, so it generally takes a little bit of time to get to us.
Yes.
But Western Europe's about 30% of all transactions are assisted on the buy side. US is about 80%.
Yeah, and still at 80, even though they've tried to get an intercept with tech and all those other brands that came out, it still didn't happen.
And then to answer your question, Mark, what are we doing about it? If that's the problem, if that's the macroeconomics that's going on, what we are building is instead of trying to build just another SaaS solution. So our stats are, we think there's probably about 4,000 buyers agents actively working in Australia. There's a secondary market to it, and you and I were chatting about this before.
Yeah.
Very, very similar to the US. and it's a thing that consumers have to be a little bit aware of, is that people who are part-timing as a buyer's agent. So
yeah, they've done the course.
They've done a course. And like I've credit to some people, like we've met a couple of guys. One guy works in Atlassian, earning 180 grand a year. Last year wrote 600,000 in fees.
Yeah.
Part-timing it, which is an amazing earn.
Yeah.
But what we're building is that we are trying to build a technology-enabled service. So what's the difference between that and a SaaS business? So a SaaS business is you go and sell a subscription from a technology perspective to a buyer agent or consumer or whatever it might be at a few $1,000s a year. What is emerging and is really interesting in this space, but every software space, is because of AI now, I can't code, the devs code, but I can't code. I can sit down with one of these AI tools and I can actually build an MVP within half an hour.
Yeah.
Which dramatically changes the game. Is it the scalable product? Probably not yet, but it's heading in the direction of it will be over time, and you'll be able to connect it up to database and do some really cool stuff with. So our bet is that there's going to be a lot of software, but what we're building is a technology-enabled service. So what that means is we're building out 5 key business units. One is a research arm. So we cover properties like investment bankers cover stocks. We give people comprehensive 15-page reports on not just the property, the area, how many owner-occupiers versus investors in the street, what's the composition of those people, is it social housing? Like we found an interesting one the other day, we're buying for a client, $4 million purchase in that street, 2.8% social housing, 2 streets over, 1 in 2 homes, 3 streets that way, 1 in 2 homes, and uncovering this information before you even buy into the property that the general punter can't get on going on REA domain, which effectively was a list view that was in the newspaper, is now a list view on the line. There's a lot more data in behind it.
Yeah.
The second component to it is where I've built some technology out that allows us to create a more efficient marketplace for sell-side agents and buyer agents. So the example is buyer's agents sending out their buyer brief. So buyer brief is, it won't say Mark, it will say buyer X, looking for 4 million in these suburbs. Let me know if you've got something, call me. Reality is a lot of agents don't read that.
Yeah.
It's just the reality. They're busy people. What we've done is built a system that allows us to hook into the database of the seller agent and automatically wash it against the buyer agent's mandate, not just for on-market, but pre-market, off-market listings as well.
I'll jump in on that one because like we talked about how sensitive we were about our data, you know, back in big tracker days, not giving everything to, you know, the giants on data necessarily. I think they do a great job of search, by the way. I think Cotality and RP Data do a great job of display and of research when you're behind the paywall. But if someone's opening up their database and there's potential sellers in there, there's sellers in there, there's listed stock that they previously had a workflow on, how do they get assurance that that's not going to somehow end up in another competing sales agent or end up a buyer's agent directly interacting with that property without that agent being the introducer?
So the sell-side agent, they will opt into what data. They're in control of what. So the way I think about the market is very simple. You got supply and you got demand, listings and buyers. It's as simple as that. Whatever the supply is that they put in, what we've been very careful of, to your point, is we don't take information we don't need, nor do we want it. Like privacy laws now versus 10 years ago when we started Bid Tracker, like dramatically
different. Even in the last year, they've ramped up. You know?
And scary. Like you just don't want to go near it.
Yeah.
So what we do is we grab the address of the property and then we have a bunch of different ways that we enrich it to know more about that property. So that we can actually understand whether it's a good match for a mandate that we've got as well.
All right, so on to point 3. So we've got research and we've got the kind of connection marketplace there.
The third one is we're building a national network of local market experts. So what we've seen a lot of is there's really, really good operators out there on a buyer agent front. 2 fundamental things that they find really hard. They don't find it hard, the really good guys, like good listing agents, to find buyers. There's 2 things they struggle with is if they want to do proper DD, it takes them about 4 hours to do it. And the lack of stock. And so we're trying to solve those 2 problems through research and through technology in order to build them an engine room that allows them to scale and succeed their business. And then the last one is actually building a marketing arm that allows us to build a consumer-facing brand that's in market, that's well-trusted. Our goal is if you're a part of the barbecue conversation, you're talking about where'd you search for your property? You're probably mentioning REA and domain, but how you bought it, we want it to be through a Foundit representative or through someone who's interacting with Foundit.
Okay.
And so the way that we think about that is experiences you're trying to create. Like what's a 10-star experience for a consumer when they've bought a property through like a 1-star or 5 stars? Probably you're keeping them up to date with what the house is now worth 12 months, 2 years after. What we've done is build a post-purchase portal that's like their CommSec account, but in their pocket. So the client can see and track the value of their home after they've bought it through you.
Okay, so that's where, because the service gets elevated after settlement when the keys are usually handed over, maybe not even by the agents that have done the transaction in a lot of cases.
Yeah. And so with that, why are we doing all that, not just building a SaaS business, is, as I said before, technology as a service is going to be a massive industry.
Yeah.
The punt we're taking is that AI will disrupt a lot of jobs. I think that everyone's kind of knows that. It's not a question of if, it's kind of when, in what industries. What we're trying to figure out is what are the most human elements of the transaction where you want to speak to a consumer or you want to speak to a professional, because it doesn't matter whether it's an AI chat tool coaching you through it. You still want to call someone, you still want to have a conversation, say, I'm about to make the largest decision of my life. Am I making the right decision here? And you want to speak to a human on the other end of it.
That's gold. So we've got research arm, we've got connection, I suppose, marketplace of stock that's available with sellers agents so the buyers agents can interact with it.
Yep.
We've got the national network of actual professionals as in buyers agents that subscribe to the platform. I heard the last part about marketing arm. And the stock part, was that the same as the database, the matching, or is it a
so
thing?
the research arm, which is the first one, that's kind of the brain of our organisation.
Yeah.
So we're very fortunate that we've recruited in the ex-co-founder or co-founder of Pricefinder.
Okay.
Kent Lardner.
Oh, I know Kent. Yeah.
Actually lives in up your way.
Yeah. I've interacted with him a lot over the years.
Yeah.
That's great.
And then at CoreLogic as well. And so he's building out a huge data lake for us of how do we look at properties, how do we assess it, how do we make sure that we're ahead of the market of where is about to go through a growth rate through a series of things that he's building out for us. And then how we enrich it through the matching technology with the data that we've got access to as well.
That's excellent. So where are you finding the biggest constraints in solving, this macro problem that is in these 5 sort of bullet points here? What's the hardest so far?
I think coming back to, you go from the journey was startup, hustle, do everything yourself, into big corporate, leading big teams with unlimited resource. Then back to day one of now you're back in the grind. And it's like, all right, we need to do this marketing exercise. Who's going to do it? And you're like, well, actually, that's me. So then you've got to go and build it out. So what we did is we made a conscious decision that we think someone's got to be the biggest. I think a lot of people are going to enter this space. We think it's very similar to the REA and domain race. Why is REA worth 40 billion and domain is worth 4? Is REA got there first. They got market share, which got them the listings, which got them the eyeballs, and now they charge whatever they want. Domain, it's got to be really hard for them to ever catch that because of that first mover advantage. So what we did is we raised in pre-seed funding about 3.2 million. Initially was going to be 2. We found more opportunity for more people that shared the vision.
Yeah.
And so we took on the money. And through that, what we've done is there's kind of 2 parts to the struggle. One is you're trying to not run too far ahead of where you are today from hiring someone who's got high capability that might be a bit of a disconnect from where you are today.
Yeah.
Versus going and actually finding the right buyers agents on the ground that you want to partner with, that, coming back to what we were talking about before, align to your values and the culture of your business as well. We don't want to just be a fee business. It's not, we've both seen a lot of that of, if you're just there to do GCI, it's got to be more impactful.
I think that, so GCI for the listeners, non-real estate, gross commission income. I think that the GCI thing has come from, without saying they're bad per se, but franchises have made GCI popular because it's top line revenue that they charge fees on. So all the awards are about GCI. Like in other parts of the world, they talk about how many millions of dollars worth of sales you've done. But in companies that charge top line rev, they want to talk about how much income you've created. And that's what makes a hero agent. And it's very hard to strip that away when lots of the coaches and trainers, are very subscribed to that same philosophy because they're mostly working for similar groups. And it is a measure of your production, no doubt. But then when it comes into how you do business or how many people you've got doing that business, whether there's any profit coming out of it, and more importantly, whether they subscribe to a set of values and a philosophy around customer experience, it's very hard to unpeel. I know when we got really clear on our values, we had to say goodbye to some people that the marketplace just thought, what the hell are they doing? They're losing staff hand over fist here.
Yeah.
But we would consistently be showing people, hey, this is what we mean by this point. We've got you. We'll help you on the learning journey. We'll wrap so much support around you, like crazy unlimited support. But when they consistently just kept, just throwing that out with the bathwater, just doing practices from, 10, 20 years ago that we didn't think were okay then, let alone now.
Yep.
Eventually, you've just got to say, you know what, there's no amount of income that's going to make this work, because when you really want to grow something that's truly unique and valuable, as Hamilton Helmer talks about in 7 Powers, one of my favorite, measures of a business's value, it's an advantage you can hold for 10 years or more. And you can't hold an advantage for 10 years or more if you've got people that are just running their own race.
Yep.
I imagine that would be really challenging as you're trying to get distribution. Like, you're trying to have experts in each marketplace, yet to fill the numbers of experts in each marketplace, how do you run that rub when consumers or, agencies might come on their site? I'm assuming a consumer can come on there and find a buyer's agent, or an agent can publish stock for a buyer's agent, and there's a not values aligned professional that's crushing it in that marketplace. You don't have an operator for them. How do you say, sorry, we just don't have anyone there, when they're saying, well, I'm going to go and pick my own? What do you do there?
Yeah, there's a bit to unpack there. I think that the initial thing was, we learnt very early days that we had to get the values right. And if I reflect back to the last business, we never put values on a page.
Yeah.
We just lived them, and we were like, this is just, we'll live through them, as opposed to we'll put them on a piece of paper. And you need to do both. But we actually had to sit down as a team, where that was 6 months ago. We were a team of 4. We're now a team of 19. We've been around for 11 months. But we were like, we need to figure this out, because otherwise we're going to end up with a bunch of bad actors.
Yeah.
And then it's got to get out of control.
Toxic rock stars, I call them.
And then, and it grows like cancer. And it goes through the whole organization and before. And so couple of things that we did was, we actually decided, okay, let's run a little bit ahead of where we are, and let's get some really good advisors around this business. So we brought on Josh Fegan, who's helped us. And I went to Josh and I was like so excited, because I'm thinking like a SaaS person still. And I'm like, I've got 40 people here that all want to say yes. And I'm excited to see Josh and show him it. I go through it all, and he's like, I reckon you can probably recruit 10 of these people, and either the 30 you're not ready for, because they're not leader material, they're not the people that you need. You need people that actually shows leadership capability. So these people that want to join because they see the vision, but they need someone to show them the way on the ground and be with them and nurture them on a daily basis. I was like, he's right. It's so annoying. And then, because you're thinking about revenue. So then the next person that came through was, through Josh actually, was Nick Dowling.
Oh, yeah.
And so sat down with Nick, showed Nick, because Nick played a big role in the real-time agent business. Yes. Obviously has run Jealous Craig, took it from, I think, 25 million in revenue to, I think, 300 million in revenue over a 10-year period.
And then board of REA.
North Melbourne Footy Club, and a bunch of other things. Very impressive guy.
A lot of leadership.
And we sat down with him just to get some general advice, and he was actually like, I actually really like what you guys are doing here. So fast forward, did 3 months of advisory, and we've just appointed him as our chairman to actually come on. And one of the things that Nick taught us already is he's like, with the Jealous Craig brand, they have actually said no more than they said yes a lot of the time, which is actually a really hard thing to do. It's harder than actually finding the deal.
Especially when they went into franchising, like they gave up their company-owned offices so that everyone was on a level playing field.
Yeah.
That would have been challenging.
Yeah, and getting the right structure and getting the right people inside of the business. So the two struggles is like, there's huge opportunity on the consumer front. And you're like, I want to chase after it, but you've got to make sure you're growing it at the right pace so that you can actually build it into the longevity.
What about your partners though, the actual buyer's agents? How are you going to run the ruler over them as who gets to join? Because you're sort of vouching for them in some way by having them on there, right? What's their standards they have to meet?
Yeah, we built a pretty good process in behind the scenes of how we go about which we don't give away the whole thing,
Yeah.
but we meet with, there's like 4 or 5 meetings they go through. We kind of vet them. We understand their market. We understand who's in their market, who likes doing business with them and all that kind of stuff as well. And then it's also just finding people that you're like, I back this person, he or she. I can see they've got huge potential. Let's get behind them and give them the resources and see them absolutely dominate in this space as well.
I think it's great. Like, you know, process engineering, something I've been passionate about for a long time. It can be a lonely sort of beating of the drum a lot of the time. And, you know, even with this buyer stuff, I was coming down here for many years between 2015 and 2020 when we eventually got things going in the buyer's agency sector. I met with so many of the CEOs of the G11, they used to call it, the top 11 groups that make up 80% of the transactions throughout Greater Melbourne. And the level of interest in even participating with buyer's agents was so low, not because they were being rude. They're just saying, my guys aren't going to do it. Like, unless you've got listings for them that the buyer's agents are going to flick them back, but then the buyer's agents work for every agency anyway, so they're just distributing what they've got.
Yep.
It's going to be really hard to get input, like get keenness on this. So that's why I had a look at spinning the flywheel differently. And we went in with the white label of Nexar and helped them cultivate their databases to have better buyers in there, find them listings. And then we were in the process referring it out to buyers advocates when the buyer really wanted it and they weren't getting help. And that was one way to get it there. But it was a very slow burn. And I think the sales agents just over time have just reacted to there being more buyer's agents. And many of them are really stoked. They're like, oh, the buyers are really qualified.
Yep.
It's like, you realize you've got the opportunity to qualify buyers like this as well.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to even charge them. You can get them to this point where they're that clear on what they want and they're ready, and you can actually help them get ready.
Yeah.
So I think that's where the big gap is at the moment. You're definitely helping fill it from this operating system level. I still think agencies, like right now, the urgent thing is building a proper buyer pipeline process. So after you catch the initial search inquiry from REA and Domain, there's another stat that you'd be well aware of is that less than 10% of buyers can actually buy today. They're not financed and they're not clear on their final criteria. And then another 50% of them will actually flip and buy something different than their criteria, different town, different bed, bath, combo, different product type even. So 5% of buyers that are inquiring right now are ready to buy the thing that they're inquiring on. That means 19 of them aren't. And yet all we're doing is waiting for them to inquire again off REA and Domain with the money we've spent of the owners to find buyers we've met 7 or 8 times.
Yeah. That's where I think there's this huge opportunity because it's an education process. So like buyers enter a market, they'll go, I want to buy a 4-bedroom house in Brunswick, 3-car, whatever it might be, and I want to pay 1.5. And then they shop around in the market and they're like, actually, I'm not going to be able to get this here.
I'm going to Preston.
Exactly. Yeah. So what often, when the start I gave at the beginning is that 8 months of actually trying to buy, probably 6 months is them just educating themselves.
Yeah, browsing.
Yeah, and just figuring out like, A, where do I want to be, but where's the best bang for buck for where I'm at in my life, what I'm trying to solve for, and actually figuring it out. And it might not be Brunswick. It could be actually on the other side of the river.
Yeah.
And it happens all the time.
I really like it. Man, I'm glad we're talking again anyway, because like I feel like there's going to be a lot of synergies in this parallel journey.
Yeah.
I think I'm really encouraging, like we're doing it ourselves, again, leading from the front, but because I just feel it has to be done. I'm like, after having the opportunity to exit and not so much work in this kind of intensity and just go and advise boards and play around with my venture capital, private equity, do developments and just enjoy my life with my family, I'm like, something's still there. The work's not done. So I'm doing it probably from an industry level. You're doing it from an enablement level to bring these industries to life. And I think that the real winner of this is going to be the consumer or the customer, as we call it, because everyone's a customer of some type.
Yep.
AI is huge in your world, and that's where I want to pivot to now. Actually, what I will do is I'm going to just pivot firstly to something we haven't talked about much, and it's personal brands. Like, I think we're in the age of AI and personal brands, right? And we've talked about AI quite a bit then, how it's speeding up things, like ideas are no longer, novel. The execution of them is probably the most important. There's something that requires very personal involvement, and that is the personal brand, communicating who you are as a person, how you do business, what you stand for. What degree of importance are you placing on that at the moment in terms of a founder, but also those you're educating out there in the buyer's agency sector?
Massive, huge. I think It's interesting. I was caught up with a venture capital firm who's a mate of mine who runs it. They got a few billion under management, and they were saying 5 years ago, if we wanted to invest in a technology business, we would look at, well, what's your moat?
Yeah.
And the moat was the tech and it was the data.
Yep.
And brand and community might have been this thing off to the side that was like, it's good if they have it, if they don't, whatever. They obviously want a good culture. But now actually number one priority is brand and community, because you could be disrupted at any point in terms of the underlying business model. What will remain is brand and community. How strong of a following do you have, both internally and externally within the business, to actually succeed? Which is a complete flip. But almost when he told me that, I was actually thinking about real estate 20 years ago when it was just the franchise brand. There was no systems that sat in behind it. Almost feels a little bit full circle.
Well, even just 5 years prior to that, it was multi-list.
Yeah.
Like you'd literally just drive down the high street of your local suburb, look in the window, get someone to approach you on floor time, hand you a magazine and say, let's jump in the car and go and look at everyone else's properties.
Yeah. Yeah. So the second one is who's a mate of both yours and mine is Frank Grief, obviously. It's what he's done in, I think, 18 months, has taken it from zero following on a personal brand front to Kinso and him and 20 million in views a month now. He's a investor in our business as well. And so I've sat down with Frank, as has the team, and we've got to take the same strategy as him, which is build out the brand and community, a bit of build in public, but also just show what the culture's like inside of it. And the true test of that we spoke about Nick Dowling is like, if a person's standing outside and it's like a kid in the candy store moment, they really want to be inside.
Yeah.
But how do they get inside of that business? How do they become a part of that movement is what we're trying to build inside of Foundit as well. Because I think the other way that we did it, and we did it offsite recently, is use HubSpot. The HubSpot CRM system, for anyone who doesn't know, it's like industry agnostic, one of the biggest in the world.
Yeah, we've got it in presence now.
Yeah, but if you go and have a look at the leadership team of HubSpot, each of the execs have millions of followers on an individual level. And why is that? Because the brand, consumers aren't necessarily trusting the brand anymore. They're trusting the individuals in behind it.
If these kind of people work there, and I sort of resonate with them, and even if they're not subconsciously thinking, I share their values. Like one of my scaling up advisors says, you need people who believe what you believe.
Yeah.
Now that's great for culture internally, but it's actually great out externally as well. And I think I was quite choked up for a while after we got kind of smashed in the media and feeling misunderstood about like what I've always been trying to achieve is better. Like it's better for the consumer, better for the industry, win-win outcomes. And it's just raised my sense of urgency of just being clearer on what we're talking about. And long form content is a great platform for me because I'm so high on context and they're deep topics. But my team as well, like they're like characters in a movie. And I've definitely seen that emerge with Frank and Kinso. How are you doing that in reality? What are some actionable things you're doing to kind of start creating that model for yourself?
So we wouldn't try and replicate exactly what Frank's doing. Because I think we're targeting a different customer segment that lives within it. The way we're doing it is, how do we help to hero people in property have a pretty interesting day comparatively to someone who might just be in a corporate job sitting behind a desk for 9 to 5.
Yeah.
Real estate people are out on the road. They're doing negotiations, doing inspections, looking at beautiful properties. They're doing research. So actually leveraging that first and foremost. Leveraging behind it the research team that we've got and how we actually use that as the brain to give them very interesting information and then give back to the consumer.
I think that's good value too, because people are like, how does this work? Like they're not going to bother going on your website and reading everything. They need to see it in little grabs over a long period of time.
Yeah. What about for you with I know you have started the journey ahead of us in terms of socials with TikTok and things. What have you been most surprised by with it?
That's a really great question. It's an excellent question. So the different platforms definitely have different, not just audiences, but ways of communicating. So when I first started consuming TikTok, for example, as a consumer of TikTok, not so much a creator, I was really just looking at the same content I was looking on Reels, you know, like scaling advice, business, a little bit of mindset. But I'll put out the same content on a reel as I will on TikTok, whether you post it same day, different days or whatever. One of them will go 6,000, 10,000 views on Reels. On the mature platform that it is, with a very geared algorithm towards the type of people following.
Mm.
On TikTok, that could bomb and get 200. And that is a bomb on TikTok, right? Whereas I was in Newcastle the other week, I was totally cooked. And I'm sharing the whole thing. So I'm sharing my routines as well. And I was cooked because I was launching an employee share ownership plan. And I just came out and did all these raw TikToks about the employee share ownership plan. They did all right, 500, 1,000 each. But then at the end of the day, I went down and meditated at the beach. I came out of the water and I just wanted to document it. And I wasn't even actually going to post it. And I thought, I've actually said that all right. I'm just going to post it on TikTok. I have my shirt off, like tattoos and everything. It just went so well compared.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, wow, okay, this is such a different platform. They want to see you on there for like who you are behind the scenes. They want to feel like they're you.
Yep.
YouTube's a very slow platform to build on, I have seen, unless you're driving traffic there. But I feel like really well suited to YouTube. And I'd say LinkedIn is, interestingly, it's a cross between a blog and YouTube, in that like your IP and your thought leadership can come to the front. But you've got to be willing then to participate in all the comments that come in, because there's heaps. Like you could get instant comments on LinkedIn, but it's amazing. It takes a while to start applying the same attention as you would to usually one thumb tap on Instagram. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, totally. I think that we're starting to play around with it. I think Frank gave us some really good advice early days, because obviously in his last business, they had videographers and stuff, and he loves really great content.
Yeah.
And he was telling me one of the things he found is he was doing this awesome high-end content, high video production, and then Juck started. He's like, I don't want to do that. I might just do it on my phone and film it doing a run.
Yeah.
And he said within 2 weeks, he's actually outperforming where Frank is at. And Frank's like, well, okay, the algorithm and the platform has spoken. This is the way to do it.
Yeah.
I think that what we're conscious of is, A, we're dealing with someone, the largest asset. So be careful. Don't go too silly. Firstly,
with confidentiality, privacy, what you're talking about, recorded combos and the like. Yeah,
make sure you understand who the customer is on the other side of it. You'd be interested though, like people would originally think like, I think it's a stigma from like 10 years ago where they're like, ASX 200 CEOs aren't on Instagram. Well, they are. Every demographic is on there. The stat is that the people are now spending an hour and 50 minutes a day on social media. So the thing that Josh Ferguson always said to us is like, where is your customer hanging out when they're not shopping with you? That's where they are.
Yeah.
For a big part of their day. So
definitely they're more than TV, more than free to air TV.
Exactly. So you got to be there is the reality. We spent 10 grand in our last business in the over 4 years that we were running it in marketing.
Wow.
This is a very different business.
It'd be very different.
Yeah.
Well, we're in presence, like, I am inspired by the Kinso team, what they're doing, and I'm sharing that down the pipe. I think we had a few sort of laggards in the business that were just like, that doesn't apply to me. Yeah. And they were almost like shaming other people for doing it internally. Now we've still got to cut the people that don't really want to do it, but we're okay with it because they're okay with other people investing their time in it. But internally, just creating space in presence. We've got a media room. We've got an editing team that can just do like minor edits. And we're getting people on there a lot more. And I'm sharing what I'm learning because as a founder, I'm out in front. I had a good catch up with Frank before I started on my brand journey, and I did pretty much run his playbook. But like I was sort of out of tilt by about 11 months. He's probably about 3 years in now. It was 18 months when he went from 2,000 to 180,000. But he's really matured it, and to help grow other people's brands like that, I'm seeing that, and I'm inspiring my team to be doing it as well. And I think that the thing that is hard but necessary is that you can't hold back the hidden 10% of what you really think. Like if you're making content based on what you think people are going to like, then the chances are that you're just going to be boring and vanilla to everyone. And you're seeing so much of that. In real estate and public professions, people still think it's cool just to put a sold sticker on and have a high five moment or whatever. No one gives a shit. That information is so public. Yeah. Like show it, like Sirhan probably did it well with the day in the life of. Marty Fox is kind of following his playbook pretty well now, and I see a bit of that. Yep. But then if you've got a contrarian opinion on something like I do on the way the buyers and tenants are serviced in Australia, you don't just say it once. Like you have to say it all the time, like almost in every discussion. Because otherwise you don't become known for it. And your personal brand is basically what you're known for.
Yeah.
It's like no one's known for being in a job. No one's known for being in real estate or in tech.
Yeah.
They're known for their view on what they should be doing in that, what they're building towards, even if they're working inside someone else's company.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's really good advice. I haven't thought about it like that. But the one thing we do is with the team, if they don't want to do it, that's fine as well. We don't expect everyone to do it.
Yeah.
We see the compounding effect of actually doing it. We've done enough testing on it now to understand that it works.
Yeah.
To your point, it definitely does. But allow people don't have to do it.
Yeah, just don't shame each other for doing it.
Exactly.
Like, encourage each other. Because you think about it, if someone's learning skateboarding, they're going to fucking stack it all the time.
Yeah.
Right? But you go to a skate ramp and you watch someone drop in for the first time, everyone cheers.
Yeah.
Right? When someone comes off, they all go and help them. Right? No different in ice skating, no different in gymnastics or netball. Like, you don't shame someone for having a go. You want them to become part of the movement, and the movement's already started. Like I feel like I'm late to the party, but the reality of it is we're always early to the party in what we're doing. It just feels we're late because we're around other people who stretch us.
But I think the other thing is you can now do an amazing amount of output by using certain AI tools. Like we had our buyer's agent up in Byron Bay, it's an amazing operator, Mel, up there. We were looking at innovative ways to try and launch her where we're not spending huge amounts on marketing of a billboard or something that you don't really know the ROI of. So one of the things that we came up with was we did a colouring book that we put in all the pubs and putting into some of the holiday rentals up there.
I love a bit of offline media like that.
Yeah, and we actually got ChatGPT to write it.
Yeah.
It's called Benny Buys in Byron, and it's about Benny trying to buy a property up in Byron, can't, start struggling, so then engages with Mel.
Yeah.
And we had a bit of fun with it, with introducing some of the characters out of Headco, like my co-founder. I didn't tell him.
That's so
But he was
good.
actually in there as the grumpy owl, as the head of research, which we gave to him at our Christmas party, which he was pretty thrilled about.
Oh, that's great.
But just as a different way to get attention with consumers and educate consumers around the buyer agency space in general.
That's excellent. All right, we're going to do some hot takes. We have to, even though we've had a hell of a conversation here. We've been in the flow zone, man.
Yeah.
I reckon we're going to be talking again in the not too distant future.
I think so.
Okay, so let's go. Someone working inside someone else's business, if they want to be at the middle to upper percentile of using AI to make them better in their career and their life, how many hours a week would you say they should be doing?
At least an hour a day.
Yeah.
At least. Yeah.
I'm agreeing with you. If you're a founder.
I think the start of it is just start using it.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter where you come in the front door in terms of what tool you want to do, how you want to interact with it. Start understanding the power of how you can do it, and you'll find ways to implement it into your daily routines of how you operate everything inside of every hour of the day.
I've got you. I've got you on that. So now I'll make this one easier to finish the sentence. The amount of hours that you should be investing per week in learning about how to improve with AI if you're a founder is?
Infinite.
Yeah.
You're screwed if you don't know what's going on. It's the way I talk about it with other people is it's like a tidal wave.
Yeah.
If you think it's going to turn around and head back in the other direction, you are so wrong. You need to be embracing it and try and prepare your own business for how you're going to be set up to integrate into it. Otherwise, you're going to be left behind.
Yeah. I feel like it's as big as electricity, not just the internet.
Yeah.
Like, we just don't know the full extent of it yet, but it's curing cancers. It's helping people see that have never been able to see before.
Yeah.
It's helping people, communicate with their family and do productive paid work that had some sort of degenerative disease like MN or something like that. Like, it's next level.
And then you get the scariest stuff, which is a bit clickbaity, but things like OpenClaw, where someone set up a forum and a blog for the AI bots to go and talk to each other without any humans being able to interact on it. All that kind of stuff. Like, who knows where it lands?
Look, we've always thought we've been in the end times, right? And we always thought that something's going to blow us up, that we're going to do it to ourselves. It could still happen at any time, but why do we not get better in the meantime? Let's go on personal brands. The amount of hours that a founder should be investing in building their personal brand in a week is?
3 hours, but I'm actually wrong on this one. That's what we're doing. Frank is now down to 20 minutes a week.
He's got some tight systems though. I don't think that's a full answer because if he wanted to go and get a media team hired, get his scripting, get his brand coaches, get like all the AI set up, you could not do it in 20 minutes. He's executing in 20 minutes, but there's no chance you could start with 20 minutes.
I think the better way instead of time is number of posts is commit to 5 posts, 1 a day.
Yeah. Okay. That's good. That's good. Inside a business, how many hours per week or posts per day would you say?
Inside of the business,
Like if you're an employee, same.
The same.
Yeah.
Anyone who's opted into it, we've got a Foundit bingo card.
Yeah.
So there's different. We've done a bingo card, so it's seven KPIs.
That's great.
One of them is you've got to post 5 times.
Yeah.
If you've opted into that one.
That's good. That's good. Okay.
It's building the muscle. Building the muscle.
The last one, the biggest change in the landscape of, real estate services in the property industry in the next 5 years will be
the digital avatars for agents. The one thing that you and I know very well, Mark, is most people that go to open for inspections, they just jump on the phone on the Monday. People don't answer the phone.
No.
They don't get back to people anymore, but they will at the time that serves them best.
Yeah.
Which is, we've started to see some of the stuff out of Dubai.
Yeah.
With Pete Matthews of digital avatars they're building for agents so that they can just interact directly and they can have a conversation with that agent at any time.
Yeah. Look, I agree that that's going to be one of the big changes. Like
what do you think?
Well, we've built a voice AI agent, and I've said this on a couple of my solos for leasing. I started there because the service proposition was so low. And, if you, like I said, if it's $700 a week for a rental and you're charging, say, 8%, 7%, say 7%, $49 a week, right? That's not profit. That's gross, right?
Mm.
And if you've got hundreds of rentals, let's say you got 1,000 rentals, and if people could get answered on their calls and fill forms, you'd be dealing with you'd be dealing in the thousands of inquiries that are happening in a week, right? If everyone could get answered, but they can't, right?
Yep.
So they even don't try most of the time. But it would be 5 full-time receptionists and you'd be doing 3 shifts. You'd be literally hiring the equivalent of 15 full-time people to be a receptionist to answer the questions that some of it are on the website, some of them are in an app somewhere, some of it needs a bit of IP.
The other one I've seen a big resurgence, I say resurgence because I reckon it was around 5 years ago, is fractional ownership.
Yeah. We tried to get into that in PyLab, but they keep getting hit with legislative issues. And I think there have been a couple come through. Build to rent's been a big one too, I suppose, in terms of, alternatives to ownership or how that's done. But so you said digital avatars. I think digital avatars will definitely enhance the service proposition and then figure out what's left over.
Mm-hmm.
And I would also say in Australia or Australasia, the amount of people that are engaging a professional on the buyer side and or 100%. Tenant when they figure out how to do that in an efficient way is going to be huge. But AI, personal brands and representation, they all really fit under the categories that have been enabled by AI.
Yep, totally.
So here we are. Angus Ferguson, thanks very much for coming on Flow Zone.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.